Thank you for joining us here today. Sorry for the late start. We're still waiting on at least one or two guests, and hopefully they'll come, but we'll get started because we know some of you need to leave and go to other meetings. Thank you all for joining us. Representative Christina Hagan and I, Mike Duffey, State Rep in the 21st District. Representative Christina Hagan and I introduced the Data Ohio Initiative yesterday in the non-voting session of the Ohio House. The bill numbers are really easy to remember. House Bill 321, 322, 323, and 324. And you might say, why 4 different bills? That's a little bit unusual. I will talk to you about that, and that is that these bills are mutually beneficial, but they're not codependent, so they don't all have to pass in order for any of them to have value. But before we talk about the specifics of these bills, I want to talk about the need that exists right now in Ohio. In general, for Ohioans in general, the general public, government officials, public policymakers, researchers, journalists, and the business community. So the need for data, which is already public record in Ohio, and we are not, I want to be clear about this, changing public record law in Ohio. Public record law in Ohio says what's public record and what's not public record. We're not going to get into that. That's a separate body of law. What we are going to get into is how you access that information. People want this information to be easily accessible. In other words, suppose you call up a state agency, a county, a village, a township clerk, let's call that person Clark the clerk. And you ask that they provide you with some information. You might get that as a photocopy. It might come as an email back to you. You might get some other kind of format. It might be a compact disc. The information that you desire, that comes back to you might not come promptly. It might be a week later, as the Columbus Dispatch editorialized, and I think some other newspapers, and which the state auditors talked about. It's not always prompt information. And if you can imagine for a moment that every time you queried Google for a result of something that you were searching, a little sign popped up and said, please wait, somebody's going to call you back, and they might email you with this information a week later. It would be a terrible system, and it wouldn't work very well. So we want to make this information instantaneously accessible. We can't do it with everything, but we want to do it as much as possible. And we want it to be at your fingertips. To do that, we have to have open, easily accessible data. It has to be online, it has to be in standardized formats, it has to be at your fingertips. Think of the benefits that this can have, not only for open accessibility for the general public, but also public policy and job growth. First, public policy. The decisions that we make as elected officials in the state legislature here depend on data. Oftentimes, we lack data. One of the things that I hear a lot of debate about right now is House Bill 5. How much are cities going to lose if we do municipal tax uniformity? The answer is we don't know. Nobody can really prove that. The cities can't prove it. The legislators can't prove it. It's very difficult to run the numbers. We don't have the ease of being able to do the simulation. We just don't have enough information to be able to do those kinds of things. So sometimes we have to speculate. We have to pass bills not knowing what the actual impact is going to be. Or we have a good guesstimate on what we think the impact is going to be, but it's not as precise as it should be. We have David Landsbergen from the Glenn School of Public Policy at OSU. We want students and researchers and professors that are doing public policy research in Ohio at places like Glenn School, at places like Floyd School, to be armed with the information and the data to be able to do that stuff quickly and make it meaningful. We don't want them to have to go out and do 900 public records requests and wait weeks and weeks and just spend all of their time, burning all of their energy and resources just trying to get the basic information without even getting to the analysis. On the job growth front, 1 year ago, it was November of 2012, the governor announced that IBM was building an analytics center here in Columbus, Ohio, and 500 jobs were coming here. This was a huge effort by the Columbus business community. We had Huntington Bank, who's here today, Cardinal Health, Nationwide, Limited Brands. They all kind of came together with the Columbus Partnership in Columbus 2020 to say, we shouldn't duplicate these efforts internally. We should attract a third party like IBM to come to Columbus and to do these services for our companies. And in doing so, other companies will also be able to use that resource. In fact, I believe the state of Ohio is contracting with that IBM center right now. And I know that they're trying to sell their services because I was at a MORPC meeting for shared services where they're trying to sell those services to local governments so they can do the analytics on the data that they have. So when you think about that, you're talking about job creation, but how do we get the pipeline of talent to be able to be hired by companies like that? And when other companies want to cluster around that are in the analytics space or in the data space, companies like LexisNexis, which already exists in Ohio, how do we kind of make Ohio fertile ground for them, and how do we create the pipeline of talent? And part of that is OSU is going to be doing analytics degrees now for people to get into this stuff. Well, what are they going to be trained on? You know, they can do analytics on simulated data, or we can give them publicly available data, start to make it massively accessible online, and have them do public policy research. And then with that applied hands-on experience, they're ready to be hired by all the companies that I've talked about. Alex Fisher from the Columbus Partnership is supposed to be here with us today. I don't think he's... Oh, he is! Alex, please, thank you. If you could come up, I'd appreciate that. I want to thank him in particular for what happened with the IBM Data Analytics Center. That's a huge thing. So Representative Hagan and I are going to go through the 4 bills very quickly. I'm going to try to stay out of the weeds.